Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, let's talk about an idea that might shake up how you think about faith, reason, and rational belief. We often assume that to believe in something as grand as God, we need airtight reasoning and ironclad arguments. But what if there is another path, a route where a belief in God can be considered rational even without a carefully constructed argument? This idea that belief in God can be properly basic comes from a line of thought in epistemology and the philosophy of religion that challenges the standard assumption that every rational belief must be backed by argumentation. Let's take a journey into this territory to see how some thinkers justify it, how critics respond, and how it affects our convictions. Imagine a simple scenario first. One evening, you look out of your window to see if your neighbors are home. Their car is missing, their lights are off, so you conclude they are out. In this instance, your reasoning process is straightforward. You are seeing an evidence and making a conclusion. This is a belief supported by a mini argument in your head. No car plus no lights probably means that neighbors are out. But here is an important insight. Most of our everyday beliefs don't come wrapped in neat argument-shaped packages. Consider how you believe that there's a cup on your desk, or that you had oatmeal this morning, or that you feel a gentle breeze on your face. You don't pause to formulate arguments for these beliefs, right? They arise automatically from your immediate experience. You see the cup, you remember the oatmeal, and you feel the breeze, and you trust your experiences. Is this trust irrational? No, it isn't. This is how human cognition normally works. Now, what about belief in God? If ordinary beliefs can be rational without explicit arguments, could belief in God, one of the weighted and most debated beliefs, be similarly rational without trotting out the cosmological or design arguments we often hear about? Some theorists say yes. Alvin Plantinga, an influential contemporary thinker, is a key figure here. He suggests that belief in God can be properly basic. Now, a basic belief is one that is not inferred from other beliefs. So to him, you can think of it like you see a tree when you walk outside. You don't argue your way to that belief. It just seems rational because your sensory experience supports it. Could belief in God work similarly? Imagine standing under a sky bursting with the stars, feeling awe and a profound sense of presence you interpret as divine. You haven't built a logical case. You have just directly encountered something that seems transcendent. Plantinga and others argue that if there is a divine sense, some faculty or mode of perception that allows humans to apprehend the divine, then experiencing God could be a legitimate source of rational belief. Just as you trust your senses or memory, you might trust his sensus divinatus, as Calvin once suggested. We have talked about it before also. So long as you have no strong reason to doubt it. Now the objection: if the religious believers can claim their belief is properly basic, what stops someone from believing in bizarre entities, say the great pumpkin, and that too on the same grounds? Why not tooth fairies or invisible trickster spirits? If experience alone can grant rational belief, then shouldn't these oddball beliefs also count as properly basic? Those who defend the idea that belief in God can be properly basic have a response. They argue that while experiencing can justify beliefs directly, the rationality of these beliefs also depends on whether there is any good reason to doubt them. If we have excellent reasons to think the great pumpkin is a myth, no reliable sightings, no cultural or existential resonance, no serious tradition supporting its reality, then that undermines the claim that belief in it could be properly basic. By contrast, belief in God is deeply embedded in many cultures, traditions, and even personal experiences. That makes it less obviously absurd and more resilient to easy dismissal. But skeptics push back. They say there is indeed reason to doubt God's existence. So much pain and suffering around us. The hiddenness of God. Why isn't God more obvious if God truly exists? That's what they say. If these challenges are strong enough, then even this properly basic approach might not save belief in God from rational scrutiny. A believer aware of these objections can't just close their eyes and trust their experiences. They need to consider these problems seriously. Maybe arguments are still needed at some point. Interestingly, this approach to justifying belief in God doesn't say arguments are never necessary. It allows that some believers, less aware of sophisticated challenges, might remain rational in their basic belief, like an average person trusting their vision or memory, while more intellectually savvy believers might require more elaborate reasoning to maintain rationality in the face of tough counter evidence. This perspective, part of what is called Reformed epistemology, shakes up the usual narrative. Instead of forcing every believer to turn into an amateur apologist, it argues that human cognition can support rational beliefs without argumentation in many areas. So why not in religion too? Still, critics worry that it opens the door to irrational credulity. If someone can declare any heartfelt experience properly basic, might we not drown in a sea of unfounded beliefs? The defenders counter that some beliefs and experiences are widespread and central to human life, while others are marginal and suspicious. Belief in God, they say, has substantial cultural and existential heft, which sets it apart from other fanciful oddities. Yet, this thoughtful conversation doesn't end here. Many intellectuals remain unconvinced. They argue that if God wants us to believe, God should provide clearer evidence, making unnecessary trivial arguments or debates. Others say that if divine reality were that vital, it won't allow so many doubters and argumentative critics. Thus, this eternal debate continues, lively and unresolved. What is the takeaway for us then? This conversation about properly basic belief in God invites us to re-examine how we think about rationality and evidence. It suggests that not all beliefs require a foundation of arguments, and that sometimes direct experience, intuition, or a kind of inward perception might carry legitimate rational weight. Their argument, not mine. But if you are someone who experiences a sense of the divine in quiet moments of awe or moral insight, this rational framework gives you a lens through which to understand your faith as reasonable, at least in a prima facie sense. On the other hand, if you are skeptical like me, you might argue that such beliefs are too easily influenced by culture, wishful thinking, or psychological factors. Maybe a sense of the divine is just a comforting illusion. This calls believers to be humble if they encounter reasons to doubt. They might need to do their intellectual homework. Not everyone gets a free pass on rational reflection. As we draw to a close, let's remember that this is just one perspective among many. Thinkers, scientists, philosophers have spent centuries discussing the nature of religious belief, the role of evidence, and demands of rationality. There is no final verdict handed down from on high. Instead, we have a rich interplay of arguments, positions, and counter-arguments, each contributing to our collective understanding of how faith, reason, and the quest for truth intersect. For some believers, the idea that belief in God can be properly basic is liberating. It suggests that they need not be always on defensive, brandishing arguments like swords. For others, it is unsettling. It counts as lowering the bar on what they consider is a perfectly rational belief. And for some, like us, it's a reminder that human knowledge is multifaceted, that our intellectual lives aren't governed solely by syllogisms or statistics. In the end, whether you find this perspective compelling or not, it serves as a valuable prompt to consider how we justify what we believe and why. We trust our senses, our memory, our immediate experiences, often without sufficient proof. Perhaps in certain contexts, faith might also find its place in these properly basic convictions. Standing confidently, if somewhat mysteriously, alongside our other certitudes of everyday life. Thank you for watching. Keep questioning, keep exploring, keep engaging with the ideas that challenge and refine our understanding of rational belief. After all, the search for truth is its own kind of pilgrimage, especially for people like us, right? So keep searching, keep looking for the truth, and keep evolving. Thank you very much. See you next time.